So in this video, I hope I can help others understand how your choices can have long lasting effects. I'll give you an example. I have to go to Concord to see a human rights attorney, but I'm not going to be able to most likely do what I want to do. I want to go to Concord and speak to this woman, but I'll describe why that might not be possible. So let's start with how you might do it. You would probably just get in your car. Now, I live in Rochester, New Hampshire, and I need to make it to Concord, New Hampshire. So, most people would get in their car and drive there, right? So why is this so difficult for me? Why can't I just get in my car and drive there? Well, I can't drive without putting other people's lives in danger. My mother gave me an overdose at age 7, and I cannot move my thumb without my leg jerking around. I can't move my legs without them moving a little bit off. If I try to hit a gas pedal, sometimes my leg either shifts forward or it doesn't shift at all or it doesn't move when I tell it. If I try to go around a turn and move right around a corner, my arms and legs twitch by themselves or they don't go exactly where I tell them. This has been known since childhood. When I used to try to skip rocks to the left, the rock would go to the right. When I tried to walk just through a room, my leg would bounce to the right and get whacked in the stuff. When I tried to walk through a doorway, my arm would just bounce by itself and my watches would break. The whole screen would get shattered on the doorknobs. So knowing this, I would never ever put another life in danger. Now I know my mother and father don't care about human life and other people's lives. They don't think like I do. They don't put other people first. But I do. So I've never driven until I get this taken care of. And as soon as I get a neurologist and some documentation of my disabilities, and we got this under control for at least a year, I will be driving. But until then, I am not willing to put people's other lives at danger. Now, my father and mother have been explained this, but they continue to tell me to drive anyways and put people's lives in danger. This might be because they want me to disappear, because if I go into an accident and somebody gets hurt, and I try to explain this to the cops or the judges, because there's no documentation of it, they'll just think I'm full of shit and put me in prison. So maybe that's why my father wants this. I don't know. But he's been fully explained. He's seen enough of my movements to know it's not safe for me to drive. Sometimes he just calls me stupid too. Oh, he tells his friends I'm too stupid to pass the test. Oh, Zach can't, he's just too stupid to pass the test. Meanwhile, I've passed very hard tests. And that's just A, B, or C. So I really don't have to write like 3 paragraphs of explanations on that test. So I'm pretty, it's a test I actually can pass because I can just press A, B, C, or D. And I've already passed my learner's permit test before. I had my learner's permit for 2 years when I was 16. But I did have a lot of worries and I didn't know what was going on yet. I was still being brainwashed and I was still feeding into the fantasy. Something I should have never done, but I didn't know what was going on. The adults around me weren't being adults. Instead, the child had to be the adult most of the time. Well, it was really fucked up. Anyway, so keep that in mind. I can't drive. If I drive, then I'm putting other lives in the danger and I'll be losing my soul. I am too caring about my soul and other people to do something like that. So there's no way I can drive to Concord to see my lawyer. No way. Not this year, not next year. Not until the doctors start helping me. What won't happen because my family has decided to cover this up. That's all I've heard for 25 years is this is a mental illness. It's a fantasy. Don't pay attention. Oh, my wife isn't an alcoholic. Oh, my wife isn't doing anything. Oh, don't pay any attention to the unregistered gun. Oh, no, our son is just suicidal. It has nothing to do with the medication. Oh, don't pay no attention to the side effects of the medications. Don't blame the meds. Stuff like that. So driving is out of the question. Well, how about I pay a friend lots of money to get down there and back? Well, I don't have any money to do that. And the friends that would drive me, they have kids. They're literally making ends meet as it is. If they take a day out to do this for me, their kids will have to not be picked up at school, or they'll have to take a day off of work, and that doesn't work for them. So that's not going to work either. Okay, let's say I walk from bus stop to bus stop trying to find my way there through buses and buses and buses. Well, that's fine during summer. During summer, I do that. I'll go all day. I'll take a day off and I will spend all day trying to get to these places. And sometimes I have to take a break and make sure my nervous system adjusts. But usually, if it's really hot out for, let's say, July and August, I can do stuff like that. But right now, it is March and it is cold out. And if I do that, I'll probably be hospitalized before I get there. Then my attorney will wonder why I didn't show up, as well as the hospital will just be releasing me in an hour, and then I'll have to try to restart again. So walking and busing there is not really a good idea because I could end up on the ground all bloody again. Now, why would I be on the ground bloody? Because I've had a 25-year-old neurological disorder that causes seizures, shakes, lack of movement in my body. We've known that there's been problems with movements in my body. They've seen me bump into stuff. They've seen my speech get changed all of a sudden at age 10, 7. That I was skinny. They know I was abused too. The doctors and everybody saw me losing weight, having problems to eat. I ended up having severe headaches to the point where I was brought to the emergency room. There was lots of side effects from medications. So everybody knew there was something seriously wrong, and I was speaking up about it too. It wasn't like I was quiet about it. It's just that when I spoke up about it, my mother would make up a story and then traffic me around the country and then try to brainwash me so I wouldn't know what was going on. She also would make up mental illnesses like that if I'm playing action figures, I'm schizophrenic. If she's giving me 3 downers and I'm tired, and then I'm naturally hyper, and then she gives me more pills and I'm tired, and then I'm hyper. If she does this to me, then I must be bipolar. Meanwhile, I'm ADHD. I'm hyperactive all the time. The only time I look bipolar is if my mother starts giving me downers, and then I go down, and then I go back up when the meds wear away, and then my mother gives me more downers, and I'm down. Then the medication wears away. So this is how up and downs go. You give a kid downers, they go down. It's that simple. The next one is we got the depression and the suicidal thoughts. My mother was giving me depressants that had side effects right on the paperwork, more than one of them too, that said if your child has suicidal thoughts, consult a doctor right away. Well, instead of doing that, my mother turned it into a lifelong illness. So you got all this going on. So there's no possible way I'm going to get medical help from a doctor so I can get treated and then walk on the bus and get to these locations that are really, really far away. I can make it as far as Dover probably, 3 towns over, and then I might not make it back home. There's many times I tried to get to Dover and then I fell down and needed an ambulance, or I got cut up on the way home. So we can't do that either. The other problem too is if I strain my body too much, I lose the ability to speak. Well, when I get to Concord, I'm going to need to speak to this lady. I'm going to need to explain everything clearly. But if I push my nervous system, fall down on the way there, I'm probably not going to sound very coherent when I get to her office. So that's out of the question. So what options do I have to get to Concord to see this attorney and give them the pictures, videos, the things they need? I don't have any options. My mother and father have totally fucked me up and taken away any option that would help me get this stuff cleared up. And my mother did it on purpose, and my father's doing it on purpose now because he definitely does not want to deal with this shit. He'd rather his son die a horrible slow death than go over the true events that happened during my life. He'd rather blame some alcohol use there when he dropped me off in the woods. Like, go live in the woods, because he dropped me off at a shelter that wouldn't take me with my disabilities, undocumented. There's no way any shelter will let me stay there with this many disabilities that have not been documented yet. So that was, he should have known I would have to live on the streets in the woods. But yet, he blames others for these situations that he creates. He creates more and more situations at age 5. Like, it's my fault he moved to Texas. It's just so much of this. So, what should I do to go to Concord and get this done? Please, tell me. What can I do without causing serious harm to me? I mean, I can call friends and see if any of them can drop me off down there and then see if anybody can pick me up. But then there's a chance I get stuck in Concord for the night and I have a seizure outside. So no matter which way I look at this, I am taking a big risk with my life. And why am I doing this? Why could I die on the side of the road while I'm trying to get back from Concord? Because my father is making really bad choices still to today. He made bad choices then. He made bad choices in my childhood. He let my mother lie to doctors, and still today I'm not getting medical care. So if I was getting medical care, if my father did work with me on this, if my father had told the doctors when he was supposed to, if he hadn't made the choices he made, then I can make a choice to go there now. But right now I have no good choices. My father has made it so I have no choices. I can't drive, I can't walk, I get hurt whenever I go in the cold, I can't work, I can't collect Social Security. He's fucked up my body to a point where I can never really work without getting injured, but I choose to work and get injured anyways until I get Social Security. But I can't get Social Security because my father decided to manipulate Social Security and my mother decided to lie and manipulate doctors. 2, I can't drive because my body's too fucked up and I would be putting other people in danger. My father and mother decided that one for me before I was even 10 years old. Okay, well, how about walking outside? Nope, if it's in the 10 months out of the year where it's cold up here, I will literally fall and get cut up again, like what's already happened multiple times. I mean, my knees and body are completely in pain all the time now from all these seizures. I mean, my knees have been bloodied up, my skull has been bloodied up, I've had concussion after concussion, head injuries, my back has been cut up. These seizures are terrible, and these falls on the side of the road are terrible. I've even had cars run over my hair. I was maybe an inch from popping my head like a blueberry. Why is this happening to me? Because once again, my father doesn't want anybody to know that this is real. He keeps on continuing to call it a fantasy and then leave me bloody on the side of the road. So, there's nothing more I can do about this while somebody else is lying and manipulating. I need an attorney to work with me on the landlord issue. But I can't get an attorney, I can't get any of this done because my father has totally crippled me with my mother. Now, my father might have not been complicit in it. I think he's a victim as well, really. I think my mother was lying to him and manipulating him and just using his money to doctor shop around. But now he's been told by all 3 of his sons that his wife was acting crazy. He's been told by 2 of his sons that maybe these medications were a little out of control. Now he's been told by one of his sons that there are PTSD memories and fucked up shit that's fucked up his body before he was even 10 years old. So he's been told plenty of this information that he can go back and remember himself. I've also told him there's doctors out there with proof that if he wants to drive me around and find these doctors that he brought me to, that his name is on, if he brings me to these doctors, then we can establish a better case. Or maybe if I had some help with an attorney, then we wouldn't have landlords doing stuff like getting me sicker, like not fixing their property. It just, there's a lot. I can't even get an attorney. I can't walk, I can't move my body, I can't drive. And if I try to leave the house, I lose the ability to speak properly if it's cold or if I use other stimulus of my nervous system. Like if I'm trying to walk, it's cold out, and I can't sit down, I'm going to have difficulty speaking. So this has been going on for 25 years. Sometimes it's worse than others. If it's warm out or if I'm on Xanax, then it gets better. But if you give me certain medications, it gets worse, as well as it's not, I feel it all the time. I can always feel it, but depending on what I'm doing, or depending on what my mother is feeding me for drugs, or depending on how much I'm getting hit, or depending on how cold it is, depends on how much I can move. Like for instance, I used to blast the heat on 90 so I could sleep and move in the morning better. But my father didn't like that because he used to say, it's like an oven in here, it's an oven. How can you deal with this? Because I have something wrong with my nervous system. If I blast the heat real high, then I'm able to move in the morning. But if I'm cold under the covers, I'm not going to be able to move my body and get dressed. This was very common. There was all the red flags all around him, and it wasn't like I didn't speak up at the doctors. I mean, there's multiple reports of me speaking up about this overdose. My mother just called it a mysterious allergy and told me not to talk about it. Then I would talk about it. She would get mad, call it another illness, and then just move it on. So, is it my fault if this lawyer I can't get to? Is it my fault if I die in the woods? Is it my fault if I lose everything I worked so hard for? Is it my fault if I get further injuries from this 25-year-old injury that my mother lied about to cover up? Is any of that my fault? No, absolutely not. I used to try to blame myself for what my mother was doing to me, too. I didn't know this. I had to really process this. It's not my fault that my mother gave me extra medications. It is not my fault that my mother wanted to lie to doctors. It's not my fault that my mother beat me with the corner of a ruler. It's not my fault that my mother threw a shoe at my head and almost took my eye out. It's not my fault that my mother gave me pills before my adoption and I looked drowsy in front of everybody and they thought I looked sad instead. It's not my fault I can't drive. I haven't been able to drive my entire life, but it's only because I'm not getting medical care. As soon as I get medical care for this, and I'm seizure-free and shake-free for a year, then I can drive. But that's never going to happen because there's a wealthy family out there who wants to make sure that I can never drive. Because if I drive, that gives me the freedom to work, live, and maybe find attorneys. Well, they don't want that. They don't want me finding an attorney and getting better. Oh my God, Zach gets better, and then he might come out with this. So we can't have that. Let's kill him off quickly. Let's finish him off and call this a fantasy. We'll make up more stories about him, and that will keep him from getting the help he needs. When honestly, they could call me at any time and have a conversation about this. There are many ways they could help. Like for one, he could come forward, make a phone call to Social Security, and have conversations about what he said before. He also could call the doctors and sit with me in a conversation speaking about my mother's behavior. He could call a meeting with the family, with my brother, my sister, me, and they could have a conversation about what people remember from childhood. Now, I'm sure that I acted crazy on all those drugs. I mean, you can't give a 10-year-old an overdose, a bottle of Ipecac, traffic him around the country, bring him to 4 different states, beat him with all these different weird shit, twist his mind up. My mother once told me it was okay to give other children pills. Now, I never did it. And luckily, nothing ever came of it. But this is the type of advice my mother would make mistakes with. And then if we got caught, my mother would put it on me. I'll give you an example of this. So I had another kid crying in the other room. I might have been 11 years old. Crying. I couldn't get him to stop crying. So I walked over to my mother and I said, what do I do? What do I do? Do I call his mother? Do I give him a hug? Do I give him that over-the-counter mood thing that you let me get? And my mother said, yeah, give him the over-the-counter pill. That will work. Yeah, do that one. Yeah, the last one. That's the good one. And this was the whole conversation my mother had. It wasn't just a yup. She literally said, give him the over-the-counter stuff. The last one, yeah, that one. Just like that. Now, I asked him, do you want this? I asked the child, do you want to try this? He said, no, no, no. So, that was it. No. Done. But let's say I did. Let's say the kid said, yes, 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 and we gave it to him. And the mother found out. And the mother called our house. And the mother said, why is your son giving my son pills? My mother would lie through her teeth. I guarantee it. My mother would say, I never said that. No, my son must be acting crazy again. He's a liar. He's a thief. Oh, yeah, my son's a big fat liar. No, I never said that. That's what my mother would do. She used to cause these situations, create them, and then blame me for them. Like, for instance, I have to admit this. At 5 years old, I was curious about a match. I was trying to figure out how to light a match. That's it. I had matches. I was trying to light them. I couldn't get any of them to light. There was just a pile. Then my mother came over, and she started yelling at me. I told her I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, I don't know. I'm only 5. I don't have the words yet to describe any of this. I'm only age 5. But then she starts putting words in my mouth. You're trying to burn the house down, aren't you? That's what you're trying to do. And then I go along with it. I say no, and then yes, and then she yells some more. Eventually, she goes, you're burning the house down. You said it yourself. Yes, you did. You said it yourself. Well, yes, you told me that's what I was doing, and I'm all confused. I'm 5 years old, and I don't know what's going on. All I know is I have a crazy woman acting crazy in front of me, telling me to agree to stuff. And don't forget, my mother said that when she said jump, I was supposed to jump. Now, what is the truth? I was just trying to light some matches. There was no house involved. There was no burnt house, nothing. I was very curious about fire, especially coming from an orphanage where we didn't even have a fireplace or a candle. Okay. How about the next one? Now, I get trafficked, beaten, and abused all around the country. Let's fast forward. That's the match thing from 5 years old. But now we're going to zoom back to age 13. Now, at age 13, I try to make a race car on fire one time, and I do another experiment where I want to see if slime is fireproof, because I saw on the TV that Romans used to believe that slugs were born out of fire, like fire pits, because they used to see slugs come out of the ashes. So when I saw this on TV, I said, well, if slugs can come out of fire pits while it's still on fire, then they must be fireproof someplace really, really good. And it must be the slime. And if I can take that slime and make a jacket, then I'll be a billionaire someday. So I have this thought. Now I realize it probably would have worked better in a fire extinguisher. You take the slug slime, you make a slug farm, you collect the slime, and you make a fire extinguisher. Now, all this is pretty stupid. But as a 12-year-old or 13-year-old, I think that I'm coming up with a good idea. So I know about the scientific method. That's where you come up with some type of great experiment that might be true, and then you test your experiment. So I take a lighter or a match, it was a match, and I hold the match near the slug. And then I leave it alone for a day to see if the slug seemed to be alive, because it was fireproof. Nothing burned, and the slug was still all slimy, and so it seemed to work. It was fireproof. Well, then I tell my parents about it, which then they ask me about it. And then it gets worse. And my father saw this thing outside and whatever. Now, what happens about this slug thing? Well, they tell me I'm a fire setter. They say I'm trying to burn animals, big animals. I must be a serial killer. And on top of that, then they put me in Lowell Treatment Center and they up all the pills. So then my mind's spinning with all these pills I don't need. On top of this, then my roommate in this treatment center decides to tell the staff I didn't take my pills. Now, I did absolutely take my pills. They make you take them and they make you swallow them. There's no way you can hide that many pills. There's like 5 of them they're making me take. Well, the staff member comes up and asks me, now this is some evil, smiling staff member who likes to cause pain in children. I've been to this place before, and this staff member has done it to other children. She gets a kick out of seeing children in pain. Anyways, so I tell her, nope, I took my meds. She says, well, your roommate says otherwise. I say, well, he's a piece of shit. I don't know what he's talking about, but I took my meds. And then she goes, well, we'll see about that. She calls over this person and says, give him his meds again. I say, you're a bitch. I already took my meds. At this point, they hold me down and they force the same medication in me twice. Now, this has only happened to me twice, but I still have PTSD from it to this day. Because at the age of 4 years old in the orphanage, I was held down and given the same 2 medications twice, all because my person at breakfast next to me put ketchup in my orange juice and told the story. And now, at the age of like 12, 13, I'm being held down and given 5 medications doubled up. And now my organs feel funny, my head feels funny, I'm drooling, I can't think straight, I'm all dizzy, I'm discoordinated, and I feel like shit. I was just held down and forced these medications down my throat. They're injecting me with these things, and I now am traumatized. Oh my God. And then I look up and you got a woman laughing, smiling. Oh yeah, you're in pain now, huh? You happy you called me a bitch now? Yeah, you like those double meds, huh? fucking a nuts, evil woman. Not only that, the same treatment center I go in adulthood, and they let another kid that is like 7 doors down come in my room and try to rape me multiple times for 4 days. On the 4th day during the day, I bring it up to staff, and they catch it on camera, and they apologize to me, and they try to have me sign a non-disclosure so I can't sue them. But my family doesn't care if I'm raped. They don't care if I'm raped on camera. Nobody cares if I'm raped or drugged or abused or if I can't drive or if I can't move my legs or arms. They don't care about that. Nobody cares if I'm living in the woods and I froze to death. Nobody cares if people are raping me. Nobody cares if my mother is beating me. Nobody cares if I got an OD at age 7. Nobody cares if my mother is lying and manipulating. Nobody cares if my mother is taking my pills out of the closet. Nobody cares about any of that. But the hospital, as an adult, still wanted me to sign this non-disclosure, and I refused. I'm not signing nothing. You guys made a failure here, and you guys need it on the record. Now, nobody's ever going to sue you guys because nobody gives a fuck if I live or die. But anyways, so does this sound like something that I caused? Does this sound like I did something wrong here? Yes, I did. I was curious about matches, yes. But how about all this other druggings? And how about all the other pills? How about all this other crazy stuff? How about turning a science experiment into big animals or something? I mean, my mother twisted things. I mean, oh my God. She really, really fed into this fantasy bad. And my father gave her money to feed into it some more until it killed her. My own mother died because she was drugging herself with pills. She was taking pills out of the closet and she was mixing them with alcohol. And then she died of liver failure. Oh, I wasn't surprised one bit. When she came home with 20% of her liver failing and she went straight for the liquor cabinet, that didn't surprise me one bit. What surprised me is my father was allowing it in the kitchen. I mean, his own wife is dying with 20% of her liver working. She begged the doctors to let her come home to say goodbye to the family and be with the family. But that was only a lie. She was only lying to the doctors about wanting to come home and see the family so she could get to the liquor cabinet. And as soon as she walked in the door, she went straight for the liquor cabinet, poured herself a drink, and started to try to get drunk. Now, what do you think happened to a woman with 20% of her liver working who went straight for the liquor cabinet and drank? She got hospitalized the following morning. She couldn't even make it out the door. On top of this, now I'm traumatized. Now I don't know what to do about this. I'm watching a woman dying, drinking herself to death, popping pills. Meanwhile, my body is fried and my nervous system is fried and I can't make heads or tails about all this brainwashing drug bullshit. I got my brother warning me that maybe I should go off of these pills. I got my mother telling me to take these pills for life. I got my father agreeing with my mother. I got doctors making no sense. I tell them that my heart's palpitating, I feel scared at night, and I'm waking up with severe headaches, and he doubles the medication. I don't understand what's going on with this shit. And I can't drive. This is fucked up shit. And now they want to make it look like it's my fault that I can't move my body for 25 years. Now, my hepatitis is my fault. I was in a shelter and somebody ended up backing up with me with a needle. I was in a friend's house that was a junkie and I stepped on a needle. I also decided to do a line out of somebody else's cooker. Now, all those things could have gave me hepatitis, and I was around these people. So I do blame myself a little bit for my hepatitis, or all of it. If I got it from my drug use with doing that line, then yes, I will take full responsibility for my hepatitis. But if I got it from the shelter, well, that's a shared responsibility. Or if I got it from that guy's house, that's me and that guy's shared responsibility. So there's a lot here to unravel, but what's even more hurtful is I try to talk about this and get help, and then they try to cover it up and call it a fantasy or made up. Meanwhile, there's so much piles of facts and proof and teachers speaking on it and medical professionals and trafficking me around the country. There's so much here. I mean, if they just kept me in Westford, my mother would have got caught. If we stayed in Westford, my mother would have absolutely got caught. Because I know there's enough documentation in Westford. I knew that if they wrote down what I was saying at the age of 5, 6, and 7, if what my mother was hearing, what my father was hearing, if the doctors wrote that stuff down, then yes, there would have been more and more investigations. The teachers were worried. The teachers were speaking up. They wanted me in speech therapy, physical therapy. There was a big change in me they saw overnight, too. This was like 1 week, I'm talking and moving one way, and then according to the teachers, after the overdose, I'm moving and writing my hand different. They said that my writing seemed different. That that before my writing looked one way, and now my writing looks a different way. The way I'm speaking seems different, and the way I'm moving my body seems different. And they pulled me in the hallway and asked me if anything is changing with me. And I said, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And they said they were going to call home and speak to my mother about it. So with all this stuff going on during childhood, teenage years, all the way up, I'm still suffering today. This is what's preventing me from getting back to work. This is what's preventing me from getting Social Security. This is what's preventing me from getting medical care. This is what's preventing me from getting attorneys. This is what's preventing me from getting better. It has nothing to do with me drinking alcohol while living in the woods. That has nothing to do with it. Plus, I'm sober, clean, and I plan on staying that way. Meanwhile, my father can't say the same. He's still drinking. He has no sobriety yet. So he's trying to act like this is my fault. Meanwhile, he's getting drunk every night. Same thing with his wife. His wife will tell me it's my fault for drinking and being a drunk while homeless. Meanwhile, she's drinking out of control. Meanwhile, my whole family is continuing to drink alcohol. I mean, this is bizarre. This is beyond bizarre. And I have to die for their sins. This is what's going to happen. I can't even get to my attorney to do the housing stuff. So I'm going to be living in the woods again very soon. I'm going to lose everything I work towards. And I can't even have my body anymore. And I already lost my ability to drive when I was like 15, 16 years old. I realized that. And I lost the actual ability to drive during the overdose at age 7. That's when I actually got that taken away from me. I had my nervous system taken away at age 7. Just like I had my swimming medal taken away, and apparently me winning a swimming medal means I have attachment disorder. Apparently me hating my mother abusing me is attachment disorder. And don't forget, my mother had 101 excuses. Whenever I brought this up about my mother drugging me or hurting me, my mother used to say, no, he's just projecting his biological mother's. He hates his biological mother and he's projecting it onto me. I never even knew my biological mother. All I knew is that she was a 15-year-old that got knocked up by a babysitter and then did not have the financial security to raise a child. And that she went into like drugs or alcohol. According to what I've heard, it's mostly alcohol. So, yeah, I don't blame her one bit. I mean, she was a 15-year-old child who was pregnant. Children who get pregnant usually can't keep their children. That's understandable. But my adopted mother, Patricia, her giving me an overdose, her giving me extra medications, her lying to the doctor, her moving me around and avoiding responsibility, her taking away my ability to drive, her destroying my body, her drugging the shit out of me, her making up stories about me. Oh yeah, that does bother me. That does bother me a fucking lot. And then she kills herself with alcohol and drugs, so I can't even get her to admit to any more of this. I got her to admit to the extra Epicac punishments. She came forward with that. I got her to admit that something happened with the overdose. She said it was some weird allergy attack, that it was the pills and they caused a reaction, but yet she kept me on those pills. She never called an ambulance, and she didn't want to speak about it in the doctor's offices. Of course, that's not an allergy attack, that's an overdose. It's very clear what that was. It was an overdose that fried your child's body, and if you brought him to the emergency room, then maybe none of this had to happen. But not only on top of that, if you chose not to bring him to the emergency room and you listened to the doctors, or if you stayed in one spot, your son could have got the help he needed. Instead, she trafficked me all around the country, then brought me back and lied to the doctors. So today I have to die because those choices were made. Those choices. I can't blame myself for my mother's and father's choices. I've tried. They keep on trying to get me to do it again, too. I have a text message just not too long ago where my family tries to get me to blame myself for my mother's actions again. But I go, oh my God, that's crazy. You don't blame yourself because your mother gave you an overdose. That will really mess up your head. You don't blame yourself for those things. If anybody tells you that it's your own fault that your mother beat you, it's your own fault that your mother gave you an overdose, it's your own fault that your mother lied at the doctors and tried to get you to do weird things. If anybody tells you it's your own fault that you played with matches, the only responsibility you have to take is that you played with matches. But if your mother made up a further story, like that you were trying to burn the house down, yet there's no house burnt, well, that's not your fault. You were only a 5-year-old, and your mother was 50-something years old, and she knew better. Your mother shouldn't have done that to a child. That is not your fault if somebody is manipulating you. It's not your fault if you're only 5 and somebody is hurting you mentally, physically, or medically. Keep that in mind, because there's a lot of people who try to do this. They victim blame to get out of their responsibility. It's very common. You see it all the time. Victim blaming, victim blaming, victim blaming. But please, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not a child's fault if the mother has OD'd their child. It's not the child's fault if his nervous system has been destroyed and he doesn't know what's going on. So keep that in mind when if you have any of these problems like I have.